Captain America opens his eyes to a world familiar enough to feel safe, yet wrong enough to unsettle him instantly. The air carries a faint metallic ring, the colors look slightly drained, and the skyline has scars that shouldn't exist. Before he can orient himself, a voice cuts through the haze, calm, confident, unmistakable. "It's been a long time, Cap." Steve freezes because that voice belongs to a man he watched die. That voice belongs to Tony Stark. As I welcome you all back to MovieCast, hosted by me, Liam Harrison, I can assure you this isn't just another theory video. What we're exploring today is the unraveling of destiny itself. Because Steve Rogers isn't just confused, he's terrified. Not of Tony, but of what Tony's presence means. And Tony doesn't explain how he's alive or where Steve is. He simply offers a warning cloaked in mystery, as though he's standing at the edge of the universe, holding back a truth too heavy to speak. Tony steps closer, and for the first time, Steve notices the faint flicker in his outline, tiny glitches, like his existence is being re-rendered every few seconds. "Come with me, Steve. Everything has a reason," Tony says, and there's a weight behind those words that Steve has never heard from him before. But before Steve can answer, before he can even breathe in the moment, the world around him starts to crack like a glass sphere under pressure. I've always imagined the multiverse shattering like stained glass hit by a hammer. And that's exactly what happens here. Colors bleed into each other. Buildings warp. Echoes of voices, thousands of them, ripple through the chaos. Some call Steve's name. Others warn him to run. One repeats a single word with venomous certainty: doom. This isn't a hallucination or a dream. It's the multiverse itself collapsing inward, reacting to Steve's presence as if he's a glitch. And as the cracks spread, Tony's face tenses, not with fear, but with urgency. He knows something Steve doesn't, something Steve needs to know before it's too late. Yet the more the scene disintegrates, the more Steve clings to one truth he can't escape. Tony Stark is dead. Tony reaches out, maybe to steady Steve, or maybe to steady the entire collapsing pocket reality, but before contact is made, Steve is pulled backward through the fracture like a loose thread caught in a storm drain. Light bends. Reality screams. And just when it seems everything will snap, the chaos spits him out onto solid ground. Another Earth, another sky, another war. Steve steadies himself, inhaling air heavy with smoke and energy he can't identify. Sorcerers chant in the sky, their sigils flickering like dying stars. Asgardian lightning claws through the clouds. Wakandan ships fly in formation around a shimmering, sickly tear floating above the horizon. Something is coming. Something colossal. And every defender of existence seems to sense the incoming doom. But Steve hears a whisper behind it all. A truth threading through every voice and every warning. This catastrophe, these incursions, these collapsing worlds, all of it began because of him. I've thought a lot about what guilt would do to someone like Steve Rogers. A man defined by selflessness, and in this moment, that guilt becomes a battlefield all its own. He doesn't know what he did. He only knows the cost is already being paid across infinite realities. As Steve surveys the devastation, memories begin surfacing. Glimpses of choices made for love, sacrifices he once believed harmless. But now he sees how those decisions formed ripples that spiraled into shockwaves. Every universe has its own fragile balance, and one man crossing boundaries he was never meant to cross can set off a chain reaction no hero, not even him, can fully control. Then the ground trembles. A vibration, deeper than anything natural. A shadow stretches across the battlefield, long and commanding. The sorcerers hush their chants. The ships freeze. Thunder goes silent. Because doom has arrived. I swear, few names in the multiverse carry the weight of his, a tyrant wrapped in brilliance, a god forged in ambition. And as he descends, his mask reflecting the fracture in the sky, his voice rolls across the ruins like judgment itself. This collapse was inevitable, he declares. But I will finish what chaos began. It's chilling to imagine Steve standing there, face to face with a being who doesn't just conquer worlds, he rewrites them. Doom isn't here to exploit the destruction. He's here to control it. And Steve realizes with horror that Tony's warning wasn't the threat, Doom was. Steve tries to engage, but Doom moves with omniscient calm, weaving through energy blasts and mystic chains as though he's already lived this moment 1,000 times. Every hero on the field feels hopelessly outmatched. Thor swings his hammer, Doom blocks it with a dismissive flick of his wrist. Strange sends spirals of glowing runes, Doom unravels them like loose thread. Even the vibranium-fortified strikes from Wakandan gauntlets barely scratch him. And through all this, Steve senses something off, something twisted deep within the cracks tearing open above them. A whisper, not Doom's, threads into his thoughts. A wordless warning. Then a figure steps out from the shadows, cloaked in green and gold, a smirk forming beneath familiar eyes. "Miss me, Captain?" Steve's breath catches. Loki, or at least a version of him. But Steve knows deception when he sees it. This Loki's movements are too rehearsed, too deliberate, as though he's playing a role written by someone else. The trickster approaches, weaving illusions around Steve like coils of smoke, each one taunting, each one echoing choices Steve made across countless timelines. Doom watches, amused. To Doom, all of them, Steve, Loki, Thor, Strange, are pieces on a board he already owns. The illusions tighten, trapping Steve in a maze of memories distorted beyond recognition. He sees Tony dying, Peggy fading, Bucky reaching for help he can't give. Every failure, every regret played back with Loki's mocking twist. But then something unexpected happens. One illusion flickers, destabilizing with a ripple that Loki didn't intend. And through that gap, Steve sees a silhouette glowing with radiant energy. A blast cuts through the illusions, dispersing them like dust. Loki snarls, stepping back, and Steve emerges breathless but free, staring at the newcomer, Monica Rambeau. She lands gracefully, her eyes lit with cosmic intensity, recognizing Steve instantly. "It's an honor to meet you, Captain," she says, and Steve senses genuine respect, something grounding amidst the storm. Her presence is a turning point, not because she's more powerful than Doom, but because she carries knowledge. She's been traveling through the collapsing fringes of the multiverse, following a trail of anomalies that all point back to Steve. And now that she's found him, the final piece of the puzzle starts taking shape. Loki vanishes into the fractures with a hiss. Doom watches with mild intrigue. And Monica steps closer, holding a device humming with forbidden energy. The device Monica carries pulses like a heartbeat, projecting faint fragments of holographic pathways, portals, temporal logs, TVA insignias etched into its circuitry. Steve recognizes it instantly. Loki once held something similar in another timeline, a tool capable of slipping between realities. But this one is different, more advanced, more volatile, as though it was reverse engineered from TVA relics using knowledge no ordinary mind should possess. "Where did you get that?" Steve asks. Monica hesitates. "It found me." And in those 3 words, Steve feels the gravity of what they're dealing with. Because devices don't find their wielders unless they were designed to. Monica activates it, revealing a map of branching universes, each one marked with indicators of collapse. And at the center of it all is a singular point of disruption, Steve's presence crossing into a timeline he was never meant to touch. The truth hits him with brutal clarity. Trying to reclaim what he lost, crossing boundaries for love, triggered a cascade of destabilization. The multiverse began eating itself from the inside. Doom didn't cause the collapse. He's simply taking advantage of it. And worse, someone built this device knowing Steve would eventually reach this moment. Monica reveals that she's traced signals embedded in the device, encrypted pulses weaving through the multiverse like breadcrumbs leading to a single architect. But just as she begins decoding the source, Doom steps forward, dismissing the battlefield around him with a sweep of his hand. "Enough!" he commands, his voice resonating with absolute authority. The sorcerers crumble under invisible pressure. The skies darken. Even Thor struggles to remain airborne. Doom approaches Steve and Monica with an air of inevitability, as if this confrontation is merely a checkpoint in his ascent to godhood. "You tamper with forces beyond your comprehension," Doom says. "The multiverse collapses, and you still cling to hope. Hope is the first illusion." He reaches for the device, but Monica activates a protective field, sparks of cosmic energy flaring between them. Doom studies her with mild annoyance, not threatened but inconvenienced. Steve steps between them, shield raised, even though he knows it won't matter against Doom's power. "You won't erase anyone," he declares. Doom's eyes glow beneath his mask. Doom does not erase. Doom improves. The ground cracks under his feet, fissures spreading like veins of molten silver. And Steve realizes the incursion they feared is already accelerating, drawn by Doom's influence. The tear in the sky widens, warping gravity, pulling debris, weapons, even screams into its blinding core. Steve braces himself as chunks of reality twist into spirals above them. Wanda once described reality bending as a pressure behind the eyes, and Steve finally understands that sensation. The world feels like it's being kneaded by invisible hands. Monica stabilizes the device, forcing its coordinates to lock onto a fixed point. "We need answers," she says. "We need the creator." Steve nods, even though stepping into another unstable universe could doom them all. But staying here guarantees Doom's victory. Before they can activate the gateway, Doom summons a legion of armored enforcers, monstrous constructs forged from magic and science, each one chanting his name. "Pathetic mutants," Doom taunts, misidentifying Monica on purpose just to belittle her. "Pathetic humans, pathetic gods, Doom never loses." And yet, Steve sees something beneath the bravado: urgency. Doom needs that device. Whatever its origin, its creator threatens his plans. That means Steve isn't just a pawn. He's a variable Doom can't predict. The battlefield erupts in combat, and Steve knows their only chance is to escape through the gateway before Doom overwhelms everything. Monica unleashes a burst of pure photon energy, carving a path through Doom's constructs, while Steve charges ahead, shield ricocheting between steel and sorcery. Every step toward the gateway feels like fighting through a collapsing mine shaft. Explosions of cosmic distortion erupt around them, twisting the ground into fractal patterns. Thor attempts to intervene, hurling a bolt of lightning at Doom, but the tyrant lifts a single finger and redirects the strike into the sky, splitting the clouds like curtains. Doom advances, not with speed, but with inevitability, each stride warping the battlefield around him. "You flee from your own mistakes, Captain," Doom calls out. "You created the wound, Doom will close it." Steve ignores him because guilt won't save anyone now. Monica stabilizes the gateway long enough for a shimmering doorway to form, not a circle like Strange's portals, but a rectangular tear, edges crackling with TVA signatures. Steve grabs her arm. "Go!" She hesitates, glancing back at Doom, whose power is already bending the air like heat off an engine. "If he reaches this device..." "He won't," Steve insists, pushing her through the portal before diving in himself, the shield absorbing the last blast of energy before the tear seals shut behind them. The world around them reshapes instantly. They land in a calm, eerie silence, surrounded by floating islands of concrete and trees suspended in a violet-tinted sky. This new reality feels abandoned, a graveyard of lost fragments drifting endlessly. Monica studies the device, scanning for residual energy readings. Steve notices something unsettling, pieces of buildings that look familiar, like echoes of worlds he's visited, stitched together in impossible angles. Where are we? He asks. Monica frowns. Somewhere between universes, a fracture pocket. As they explore, footsteps echo through the empty expanse. A shadow emerges, tall, calm, carrying the air of someone burdened by too many timelines. For a moment, Steve thinks it's Loki again, but the posture is wrong, the eyes too tired. Then realization hits him. This isn't Loki. This is someone older, wiser, carrying the weight of infinite causality. But before he can step closer, the figure vanishes into mist, as though testing their presence. Steve senses something deeper at play, a guiding presence pushing them toward a destination. Monica adjusts the device, and a new path lights up. Whoever made this wants us to keep going. Steve tightens his grip on the shield, ready for whatever waits in this fractured limbo. As they follow the illuminated path, the environment shifts, drifting like dreamscapes stitched together. They move through remnants of timelines, a shattered Avengers tower, a frozen Wakandan plain, a street from Brooklyn in grayscale as though ripped from memory. Each fragment flickers, held together by barely functioning cosmic glue. Steve feels the weight of every collapsed reality pressing down on him, whispering consequences he never intended to create. Monica breaks the silence. There's a signal embedded in the device, a pattern. Someone's using it to communicate, but indirectly. Steve listens as she describes how the encoded pulses form a rhythm, almost like Morse code, but scattered across dimensions. Someone isn't just guiding them, they're warning them. And just as she deciphers the next pulse, the sky rips open, forming another incursion wave. The swirling mass of collapsing energy draws in everything around them, and Steve realizes the fracture pocket is dissolving. It's spreading faster, Monica says. Doom's interference is accelerating the collapse. They sprint through another temporal distortion, leaping onto a floating platform as the previous one disintegrates behind them. The device pulses harder, drawing them toward a glimmering structure in the distance, a house resting on solid ground where nothing else should stand. The house looks out of place in the cosmic void, glowing softly with warm light and music. Actual music. A nostalgic tune drifting through the void like a memory refusing to die. Steve approaches cautiously, every instinct alert. Monica scans the structure, her reading spiking in confusion. This place is anchored, she says. Completely stable. That shouldn't be possible. Steve reaches the front door, recognizing the melody playing inside, something soft, something old, something personal. Peggy's song. His heart twists. The door creaks open on its own, inviting them in. Inside, the room feels like a sanctuary carved from time, relics from multiple universes arranged with meticulous care. A spinning reel projector hums quietly, casting flickering images onto the wall. And then, from the shadows, a voice speaks. You've come far, Steve. Steve turns sharply, shield raised, but the figure who steps forward disarms him with presence alone. A variant of Tony Stark, older, quieter, his eyes carrying centuries of understanding. This Tony is no illusion, no glitch. He is the architect, the creator of the device. And Steve realizes the truth. Tony didn't return from death. Tony survived in a different universe, one where he learned how to navigate the multiversal collapse. This Tony explains that after his world suffered an incursion, he alone survived by retreating into this pocket reality he engineered to withstand the multiversal collapse. Here, he studied the fractures, using remnants of TVA tech to understand the patterns shaping existence. His device, the one Monica carries, wasn't built to travel. It was built to guide, built to find Steve. Steve struggles with the revelation. Why me? He asks, the guilt already rising in his chest. Tony sighs, placing a hand on a device panel that projects collapsing timelines. Because everything started when you crossed a line you weren't supposed to. You removed yourself from your timeline permanently. The universe rebalanced, but the multiverse destabilized. One small imbalance became a fracture, and fracture spread. Steve feels the weight of Tony's words like a punch. His choice to stay with Peggy, his fight to rewrite his own destiny, may have doomed countless worlds. I had to find you, Tony continues, because you're the only one Doom hasn't accounted for. You're the variable he can't predict. Monica steps closer, connecting the dots. Doom wants to remake existence. He needs the collapse to reach critical mass. Tony nods grimly, and he's almost there. Tony reveals that Doom discovered the fractures long before the heroes did. Instead of trying to stop them, Doom redirected them, engineering the collapse so that all timelines would eventually flow toward a single convergence point, a new universe shaped entirely by his will. He calls it ensured perfection, Tony says bitterly. A world where Doom is not just ruler, but creator. Steve clenches his fists. We can stop him. Tony shakes his head. Not unless you understand the final piece. The projector displays strands of collapsing universes funneling into one glowing wound in space. This rift, the biggest one, is what Doom is waiting for. When it swallows the last stable universes, he will seize control of the reconstruction. Monica studies the readings, her face tightening with urgency. That rift is expanding too fast. We don't have long. Tony hands Steve a modified version of the device, enhanced with quantum stabilizers. This will get you to the convergence point, but once you're there, you'll face Doom at the height of his power. Steve absorbs every word, feeling the gravity settling into his bones. Tony places a hand on his shoulder. Steve, this time you can't fight for just your world. You have to fight for all of them. As they prepare to leave the sanctuary, the house trembles, signaling that Doom has sensed Tony's interference. Cracks spread along the walls like spider webs. The music distorts into warping echoes. Tony urges them forward, guiding them to a platform that begins stabilizing the modified gateway. I'll hold the structure together, he insists. Steve hesitates. Come with us. Tony gives a sad smile. This place is all that's keeping the outer layers from collapsing. If I leave, every universe outside this pocket goes next. Monica understands instantly. Tony has accepted his role as the final barrier. Steve gives him a solemn nod, grateful but devastated. As the gateway activates, Tony calls out one final piece of information. Doom isn't just using the collapse, he's feeding on it. The destruction increases his power. The more worlds fall, the stronger he becomes. Steve commits that to memory as the gateway pulls them through. Behind them, Tony's sanctuary flickers, then fades from view. They emerge into a violent storm of realities, folding into each other, colors clashing, planets colliding in the distance. The convergence point is close, and Doom, now nearly omnipotent, waits for them at the heart of the storm. The convergence point appears like a cosmic labyrinth, layers of shattered universes orbiting a blinding core of energy. Gravity shifts unpredictably, dragging entire cities across the void like toys pushed by an unseen child. Monica stabilizes her flight using photon bursts to map safe paths through the chaos. Steve leaps between floating debris, each step echoing with the history of a world that no longer exists. He feels the presence of the fallen, countless heroes, civilians, timelines erased. Their loss fuels his determination. Ahead, a massive platform forms, constructed from fragments of Latverian architecture fused with alien metals. Doom stands upon it, observing the collapsing multiverse as though admiring his masterpiece. His armor glows brighter than before, pulsing with energy stolen from dying universes. You persist, Captain, Doom says without turning, even when inevitability crushes all others. Steve approaches, shield ready. You call this inevitable. I call it murder. Doom finally faces him, his mask reflecting 1,000 collapsing worlds. Doom does not murder. Doom evolves. Monica lands beside Steve, her photons glowing in defiance. Doom raises a hand, and the very air around them compresses, threatening to crush them under the weight of collapsing time. The battle for existence begins. Monica fires concentrated photon blasts, each beam bending space as it slices through the battlefield. Steve charges forward, deflecting multi-dimensional shockwaves with his shield. Doom absorbs each attack like they're raindrops hitting steel. "You cannot defeat what is already won," he declares. Then he unleashes a burst of raw multiversal energy. Steve is thrown backward, crashing through remnants of a skyscraper. Monica staggers but holds her ground, her form shifting into pure light to withstand the force. Steve recovers, forcing himself up despite the pain. Doom floats above the platform, feeding off the surrounding collapse, his aura intensifying. "Every universe that falls strengthens me beyond your comprehension," he says, raising his hands as the convergence spirals faster. But Steve notices something. Doom's power is tied to the collapse, meaning if they interrupt the convergence, even briefly, they weaken him. He shares that realization with Monica, who nods and channels energy into the device. "If I can disrupt the core for even a few seconds, you'll have a window," she says. "Make it count." Steve grips his shield, knowing this may be the only chance they'll get. Doom laughs, unaware that the tide of the battle is beginning to shift. Monica launches herself at the convergence core, her body becoming a streak of cosmic light that pierces the swirling maelstrom. She embeds the device into the center, overriding its stabilizers and sending a shock through the entire structure. The convergence flickers, destabilizing. Doom turns sharply, fury burning through his mask. "No!" The disruption tears through his armor, stripping away layers of stolen energy. Steve seizes the moment, sprinting across the collapsing platform. Doom unleashes a barrage of missiles formed from temporal fragments, each one carrying the force of a dying universe. Steve rolls, leaps, deflects, every move fueled by the stakes of this single instant. He reaches Doom and delivers a shield strike infused with pure resolve. The impact shatters part of Doom's mask, revealing a furious eye glowing with cosmic fire. "You dare?" Doom roars. Steve presses the advantage, landing blow after blow, driving Doom back toward the weakening convergence. The core flickers violently as Monica channels every ounce of her power. Doom's aura dims further, his omnipotence fading into instability. For the first time since this war began, Doom feels something he has not felt in centuries: uncertainty. The convergence enters a critical collapse, pulling Doom's energies in unpredictable directions. Sparks of white-hot entropy swirl around them like dying embers. Steve feels the shield vibrating in his grasp, resonating with the fading multiversal currents. Doom lashes out with desperation, unleashing a telekinetic wave that sends Steve and Monica spiraling across the battlefield. "You cannot prevent the inevitable rebirth of Doom's universe," he shouts, fragments of his armor peeling away. Monica steadies herself, weakened but unbroken. She manipulates the fractured energy streams, turning them inward, forcing Doom's power to bend back toward him. The multiverse screams under the strain as the convergence destabilizes further. Steve leaps across floating debris, closing in once more. Doom attempts to drain power from a nearby collapsing universe, but the interruption scrambles the flow, causing an implosion of energy. Steve sees his opening. With the last reserves of his strength, he hurls the shield. It cuts through the chaos, slicing through Doom's final armor plates and embedding itself into his power core. The resulting explosion engulfs the battlefield in blinding light. Steve braces for the end, unsure if anything will survive the blast. But then a singular force pulls him back from the brink, Monica's hand gripping his. As the light fades, Steve realizes they're suspended in a calm void. The convergence has stopped, not healed, but dormant, frozen in a fragile equilibrium. Doom is nowhere to be seen. Only fragments of his armor remain, drifting like ashes across the void. Monica collapses to her knees, exhausted but alive. Steve retrieves his shield, scorched, cracked, but still whole enough to carry. Did we win? He asks, breath heavy with doubt. Monica shakes her head softly. We stopped him, but that's not the same as fixing the multiverse. Before Steve can respond, the void trembles. A new presence enters, tall, composed, radiating temporal authority. A TVA judge variant. No, someone older. Someone who has watched universes rise and fall like tides. He approaches with a calm that unnerves even Steve. You've done what few ever could, the figure says. But the multiverse is still on the brink. Steve steadies himself. Tell me what we need to do. The figure gestures toward the dormant convergence, a cosmic wound waiting for restoration. A new anchor must be chosen. Someone to stabilize what remains. Steve immediately steps forward, ready to sacrifice everything again. But the figure shakes his head. Not you, Captain. Not this time. Monica rises slowly, realization dawning on her. The figure turns to her with solemn recognition. You carry the energy of countless stars. You can merge with the convergence without losing yourself. Steve knows what that means. She would become part of the multiverse itself, a guardian woven into the fabric of reality. Monica hesitates, the weight of the choice settling heavily on her shoulders. Steve places a hand on her arm. You don't have to. She meets his gaze with quiet resolve. If I don't, everything falls apart. The void hums softly, as though holding its breath. Monica steps toward the convergence, the cosmic light within her growing brighter, more radiant. Thank you, she whispers, to Steve, to the fallen, to every world that once was. Then she walks into the core. The dormant energy blossoms into brilliance, threads of light weaving themselves around her. Her form dissolves into pure luminescence, stabilizing the fracture with a gentle, steady pulse. The multiverse stops trembling. The collapse halts. Balance returns. Steve watches in awe and grief, knowing her sacrifice saved everything. The figure nods respectfully. She has become what the multiverse needed. A beacon, a guardian, a constant. With the convergence stabilized, new pathways begin forming, gateways leading to rebuilt timelines, each one glowing softly, ready to heal. Steve turns toward the figure, seeking answers about what comes next. The figure points to a shimmering doorway shaped from fragments of his native world. Your timeline has been restored, Captain. Not rewritten, restored. You may return. Steve hesitates. A part of him wants to walk through, to finally rest, to find the peace he once chased across timelines. But another part feels the pull of responsibility. He looks around at the infinite pathways, each one born from sacrifice and endurance. What about doom? Steve asks. The figure's gaze hardens, scattered, but beings like him never fade entirely. He will resurface, somewhere, sometime. That uncertainty gnaws at Steve, but he accepts it. Doom's shadow will always loom over the multiverse, but so will the light of heroes who stand against him. Before stepping into the gateway, Steve takes one last look at the convergence where Monica's light pulses gently. Thank you, he whispers. Then he steps through. The void fades. Color returns. Air fills his lungs, warm and familiar. And Steve Rogers emerges into a world reborn, ready for whatever comes next. Steve finds himself standing on a quiet hill overlooking a familiar sunrise. The world feels whole, unbroken, unaware of the chaos that nearly devoured everything. He breathes deeply, allowing the peace to wash over him, but he knows this isn't the end of his journey. Somewhere across the multiverse, survivors rebuild. Variants forge new futures. And Monica, now a cosmic guardian, watches over it all. Steve reflects on Tony's final words in the sanctuary, realizing that in every universe, their bond shapes history in unseen ways. Tony might be gone in this timeline, but a part of him lives on in the tech, in the ideals, in the stubborn refusal to let darkness win. Steve walks down the hill, shield strapped to his back, feeling the weight of both loss and hope. He doesn't know if the Avengers still exist here or if they will ever reform. But he does know one truth remains constant across all realities. Where there is doom, there must be those willing to rise against him. Heroes, rebels, protectors. And Steve Rogers will be one of them, as long as he draws breath. The multiverse may be quiet for now, but storms always return. As Steve steps into the bustling world he once fought to protect, he feels a renewed sense of purpose. The people around him laugh, unaware of how close existence came to unraveling. He finds comfort in their normalcy, but beneath it all, he feels the faint pulse of the convergence, Monica's heartbeat echoing across the multiverse. Every hero leaves a legacy, and hers will be felt in every corner of creation. Steve knows doom will return, reshaped by the remnants of his shattered ambitions. But he also knows he won't face it alone. New heroes will rise. Old allies will reunite. And somewhere beyond the stars, Monica stands watch, ensuring that no tyrant ever again shapes reality unchecked. As Steve walks into the city, determination etched into every step, he looks up at the sky one last time, silently promising to honor every sacrifice made to restore this world. And with that, our journey through this multiversal theory reaches its end. Thank you for diving into this epic breakdown with me. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the chaos, heart, and cosmic stakes of the multiverse, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to support MovieCast, consider giving a super thanks of $20. Until next time, stay heroic.